Writing conclusion. Conclusion is a recap of everything that has already specified. In research papers and dissertations, conclusions provide information on the significance of the findings and recommendations for future work. Conclusions are shorter sections of academic texts which include summarizing the main areas covered in the writing, making suggestions for improvement, and speculating on future directions. Conclusions have several basic goals. 1. Restate the research problem or hypothesis addressed in the paper. 2. Summarize your most important findings. 3. Suggest the key outcomes from your paper. 4. Recommend a specific course of action. 5. Emphasize the overall significance of the study. 6. Highlight the limitations of the study. 7. State future research direction. 1. Aims restated. The first task of the conclusion is to remind the reader of the research problem already addressed in the introduction of the paper. Here is a standard phrase list used in literature for restating the aims of the study. Key phrases are I. In this investigation, the aim, the main aim of the present study, the main objective of the present study, the main goal of the current study, the purpose of the current study, the second aim of this study has examined. E. The concept of the differences between the factors which are thought to contribute to the impact of the nature of the relationship between the role of E. Assess the effects of assess the feasibility of better understand the compare the two ways of treating critically examine the ways in which determine whether develop a model for establish whether evaluate the new method of measuring evaluate how effective, examine the relationship between, explore the influence of, find a new method for, gain a better understanding of, investigate the impact of, investigate in detail the available information on, objectively measure and assess, predict which, provide the first systematic account of, test the hypothesis that, understand the views and experiences of. Let us look at some examples where the keywords that represent a restatement of aim are highlighted in green. 1. The main objective of the present study is to provide experimental measurements to test X models. 2. This study has examined the problem of X3. An enhanced X scheme for Y compensation in Z systems has been proposed in this paper. 4. This work proposes a new X configuration and an innovative Y control concept for future grids. 2. Result summary. The purpose of summarizing the main research findings is to remind the reader of the importance of the study. Summary findings comprise only the most relevant facts and arguments. Here are some common phrases used in publications. Key phrases are multiple X. Analysis revealed that the findings clearly indicate that the investigation of X has shown that the research has also shown that the results of this investigation show that. The second major finding was that these experiments confirmed that this study has found that this study has identified this study has shown that X made no significant difference to X, Y and Z emerged as reliable predictors of. Let us look at some examples where the keywords that represent the summary of results are highlighted in green. 1. One of the more significant findings to emerge from this study is that the X seems to be carried out in Y2. The findings clearly indicate that the X can be modeled by Y3. The investigation of X has shown that a small reduction of the X can significantly reduce Y and increase the Z4. These experiments confirmed that the proposed method is more effective to detect X5. This study has identified the X approach that can be used in the compensation of Y problems. 3. Implications. The implication section provides suggesting the conclusion that can be drawn from findings of the original research for the field of knowledge and impact on future research in the research field. Key phrases are I. Overall, this study, taken together, these results, the current data, the evidence from this study, the findings of this research, the implication of this study, the results of this research, these findings, this study. E. Has raised important questions about, have raised important theoretical issues, have significant implications for, highlight the importance of, indicates that, provide insights for, strengthens the idea that, suggest that, support the idea that. Let us look at some examples where the keywords that represent the implications of the research are highlighted in green. 1. Taken together, these findings suggest a role for X in promoting Y2. The findings of this investigation complement those of earlier studies. 3. The findings of this study suggest that developing XS for reducing Y4. The results of the study indicate that the proposed method is useful for future smart grids. 5. This study has practical implications for X concerns. 6. The following conclusions can be drawn from the present study. 4. Contributions. The following phrase, list collection helps the authors for highlighting the significance of the findings or contributions of the study. Key phrases are I. Is important because, are particularly relevant for, are relevant to both X and Y, could be used to help enhance our understanding of, highlight the potential usefulness of, illustrate how, make several contributions to the current literature, provide additional evidence for, provide important insights into the role of, provide insights into whether, provide strong empirical confirmation that, represents a major breakthrough in the way, will help other researchers design. E. Confirms that, extends our knowledge of, has demonstrated, for the first time, that, has offered a framework for, has provided additional evidence, has several practical applications, is very important for further understanding of, makes several noteworthy contributions to, should prove to be particularly valuable to, will serve as a base for future studies. E. Establish that, identify, integrate modeling approaches intended to investigate the effect of, provide evidence for, report an association between, reveal the presence of, show that, test the effects of. Let us look at some examples where the keywords that represent the contribution of the study are highlighted in green. 1. The present study is the first comprehensive investigation of the impact of X on Y2. These findings reported here shed new light on the possibility of using X to facilitate the Y3. The work contributes to our understanding of the motivational factors that lead to X4. This study establishes a quantitative framework for the intelligence of XS in complex scenarios. 5. These findings will be of broad use to the scientific and smart grid communities. 6. The findings from this study make several contributions to the current literature. 7. The study has gone some way towards enhancing the understanding of the novel X method for Y applications. 5. Strengths of the work. The list of expressions that commenting the strengths of the current study can help readers to convince the validity of conclusions. Key phrases are a key strength of the present study, the main strength of this study, one of the strengths of this study. Let us look at some examples where the keywords that represent the strength of the work are highlighted in green. 1. The key strength of this X technique comes from the fact that no one can steal information without altering its content. 2. The key strengths of this review include its cost-effectiveness, generalizability, reliability, and versatility. 3. The main strength of the model-based approach is that its robustness against scheduling problems in complex environments. 4. One of the strengths of this study is its robust design. 5. One of the strengths of this research is that it represents a comprehensive power flow study of the whole network. 6. Although the findings should be interpreted with caution, this study has several strengths which provide adequate external validity for the results found. 6. Limitations of the work. For acknowledging limitations, a list of phrases related to commenting on the limitations and weaknesses of the current study. Key phrases are a limitation of this study, being limited to X. This study lacks. The scope of this study is limited. The study is limited by. These findings is limited by. E. Has not been able to confirm. Has not been able to establish. Has only considered the context of. Has only examined. Is limited by. Is not specifically designed to evaluate. Is unable to analyze these variables. E. All types of excess. All situations. Other configurations. All X settings. Complex environmental conditions. Other groups. At fluctuated loads. Under unequal impedance of the system. Let us look at some examples where the keywords that represent the limitation of the work are highlighted in green. 1. Non-response bias is a major limitation of the validity of the study. 2. The main limitation of this analysis is that it ignores the qualitative aspects. 3. The scope of this study is limited in terms of sample size, time, and geographic area. 4. The study is limited by the lack of historical data on X5. However, these findings are limited by the use of a cross-sectional design. 6. However, these results may not be applicable to all situations. 7. Study limitations make an overall conclusion about X extremely difficult. 8. Finally, a number of important limitations need to be considered. 9. The findings in this report are subject to at least 3 limitations. 7. Writing about the future, making suggestions for improvement and recommendations towards the directions, opportunities for future research related to the present work. Key phrases are become more common in the future. The situation will improve in the long term. One of the important directions in the future research. One of the important research directions. Key solutions of future research. Let us look at some examples where the keywords that represent future research are highlighted in green. 1. X is one of the important directions in future research. 2. The solution to decreasing the cost is one of the important research directions of XS in the future. 3. It is essential to develop X tools for practical cases. in the future. 4. New and improved X topologies need to be developed for interfacing different ES. 5. Referencing to the topics covered in this manuscript, several key lines of future research can be pointed out. 8. Future work, offering suggestions for practice or policy. A number of key phrases for recommendations for future research are given in this section. Key phrases are I. Include, focus on, target specific, clarify whether, attempt to identify, assess the impact of, explore the effects of, seek to minimize bias by, investigate the degree to which, concentrate on the investigation of, address the questions raised by this research. E. The causes of, the impact of, the reasons for, the influence of, the extent to which, the role that X plays in, how X is associated with, the risks associated with, the underlying causes of, the possible link between, the relationship between, the discrepancies between, the mechanisms underlying, the effectiveness and safety of, the complex linkages between, the complex interaction between, the complex association between. Let us look at some examples where the keywords that represent the recommendations for future research are highlighted in green. 1. A future study investigating X would be very interesting. 2. Another possible area of future research would be to investigate the X control scheme in the smart grids. 3. Further experimental investigations are needed to estimate the value of X. 4. Further investigation and experimentation into X are strongly recommended. 5. Further studies need to be carried out in order to validate the simulation results. 6. Further studies regarding the role of X would be worthwhile. 7. Further, a better understanding of X needs to be developed. 8. In terms of directions for future research, further work could be needed for X-based system. 9. In terms of future work, it would be interesting to repeat the experiments described here using Y10. In the future, it will be important to explore the potential use of X11. It is recommended that further research be undertaken in the following areas. 12. It is suggested that the association of these factors is investigated in future studies. 13. More broadly, research is also needed to determine the X in Y systems. 14. More research using controlled trials is needed, required to demonstrate the suitability of X in Y systems. 15. The precise mechanism of X in insects remains to be elucidated. 16. This research has thrown up many questions in need of further investigation. 17. This would be a fruitful area for further work. 9. Future improvements. In general, the conclusion section ends with a series of practical implications and recommendations of your work for practice to meet society's needs. Key phrases are implications of research, the findings, results, outcomes of this study. These findings suggest, this study suggests that. Taken together, these findings let us look at some examples where the keywords that represent the practical implications and recommendations are highlighted in green. 1. A reasonable approach. To tackle this issue could be a deep learning approach. 2. An implication of these findings is that both X and Y should be taken into account under a complex environment. 3. Another important practical implication of the research is the stability of the overall system. 4. Continued efforts are needed to make X5 Greater efforts are needed to protect the smart grid from threat. 6. Provision of X will enhance Y and reduce Z. 7. Taken together, these findings do not support strong recommendations for future smart networks. 8. The challenge now is to fabricate nanopores using different fabrication methods. 9. The findings of this study have a number of practical implications for future practice. 10. There are a number of important changes which need to be made in the future. 11. There is a definite need for measuring and generating high-frequency components. 12. These findings have implications of these restrictive limits on the deployment of new 5G technology in smart grids. 13. These findings suggest several reconfigurable X options, with the possibility to operate the system normally in Y mode. 14. This particular research finding also points to the need for the optimum solution. 15. This study suggests that X should be avoided and allow smoother evolution.